Hey guys, and welcome back to Jess and Reads Romance. I'm Jess, and today I'm going to be doing my last weekly wrap-up of 2021. I'm actually cutting off December a little bit early because I'm in the middle of doing a reading vlog. It's not going to be done by the time December is over. It's not going to be until the new year, until it's out. And I read a really great book and one that I ranted a lot about. So I'm just gonna push those over to 2022. I think the last book that will be included in this vlog, on this wrap up, was read on the 28th. So yeah, a few days have been pushed to 2022, but it's fine. We have a lot of books to talk about. So let's talk about The Bedouins because that's where I kind of left off. I had read Slightly Wicked, no, not Slightly Wicked, Slightly Married, which is the first book of the series during the historical romance readathon that happened, and I really enjoyed it. All of the books are on Anyplay, which makes it really easy for me to listen to the audiobooks. The narrator's not my favorite, but it's enjoyable, just not my favorite. And the next book, number 2, is Slightly Wicked, and this is about Ranulph and Judith. So Ranulph, he is traveling to go visit his grandmother. His grandmother wants to see him. He's kind of been avoiding it, and he's on the road, and he kind of comes to the aid of this overturned stagecoach. And there's this woman who's traveling, and he offers to take her to the inn, get her out of the rain, and they'll send help back to everyone else. And this girl, Judith, she decides to give a fake name. So she's grown up in a very, very sheltered life. Her father is a parson and has always told her, and her mother as well, has always told her like to cover up her body. She's very voluptuous, and her hair is like the sign of the devil because it's red, and like to wear like mob caps on her head and stuff. So she's very ashamed of how she looks, and she doesn't want to be wicked or anything, but she also really loves drama, and she wishes that she could be on stage. And she is ashamed that she wishes this because her family is very religious and they shun all of that. So she decides to take this opportunity to become someone else, and she gives him a fake name, Claire. So, and she actually says that I'm an actress and I'm traveling to York and I'm perform there. And it's just such an interesting concept. At first I was like, I don't know if I love Judith's character. What is she doing? She's taking this a little far because Randall's implying that he would like to have a night with her. And she's trying to see how far she can go without compromising her actual virginity. You can guess how well that plays out. What's really fascinating is when she actually goes to act in front of Ranulph because he wants a performance. Once they're at the inn, and of course there's only one room left. We have to room in the same suite and all that. He asks for a performance, and at first she balks, like she doesn't want to perform in front of anybody. She's never done that before, just in her head. She's just imagined doing it, and when she actually does it, like he's blown over, and he really believes like this is a really great actress. And I love that confidence that his genuine reaction gives her. So it's a very, very interesting romance because Judith is actually on the way to her aunt's house. Her father is almost destitute. Her father has invested a lot in her older brother going to college and hopefully making connections and making money and stuff, but he's fallen in with the wrong crowd and gotten into a lot of debt. So his father had to pay off the debts to the detriment of his own family and all of his other daughters. So Judith's dowry, anything that she would have, she doesn't have anything, and neither do her sisters. So her aunt, who married a rich man, has offered to take her in out of the kindness of her own heart. And she's basically going to be the companion to her grandmother, who she hasn't really seen that much of. Well, lo and behold, her grandmother and Ranulph's grandmother are very good friends. Now, Ranulph's grandmother knows that she has some sort of terminal illness, and her fondest wish is to see Ranulph married and having kids because Ranulph is going to inherit her estate and her money because Ranulph is a younger son, and he's kind of her favorite. So he feels so saddened because he sees how frail she looks, how much more tired she is during the day, and he knows that he has to do this for his grandmother. He has to get serious, even though he is a little bit of a rake and a rogue. Can't imagine settling down now. He's like, I can do this for my grandmother. I can make her happy because he genuinely loves her. And when she suggests this local baron's daughter, who's perfect and she's young and she's easily moldable, they go to the house and Judith's there because this is her cousin, and her cousin is spoiled, and her aunt is quite mean to her, but her grandmother's loving, even if she's a little bit much. Like, she always thinks that she's kind of an attention seeker, but she really is very affectionate with Judith, and I love that she has her grandmother. So this is very interesting because Ranulph eventually does discover that Judith is a poor relation and lied to him, and he has taken her virginity. So he's like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on? So this is very interesting because he's supposed to be courting her cousin, and the way that this plays out, it's like a very up and down relationship, and I really love the grandmother figures in this book. It's just, I'm trying to figure out which one of the Bedouins is my favorite book in this series. It's very hard because the more I talk about this one, I'm like, is this one my favorite? I don't know, but it's really great. So I give this book 4.5 stars. I thought it was fantastic. The next one in the series is Slightly Scandalous. And this one is about Freya and Joshua. So Freya is one of the older Bedouin sisters. She and Morgan, her younger sister, have 7 years between her. So she really feels like she grew up to be one of the boys. And she has the strong Bedouin nose that looks really great on a man, but maybe not so much on a girl. Her hair is really puffy and frizzy. She's tall, and she doesn't really conform to society's idea of like a dainty, gentle female. She's very outspoken. She doesn't really play the pianoforte really well or sing really well, and she likes to do male pursuits. She can ride really well. Anyway, so Freya is a little bit unconventional, and she's taking a trip to Bath. And Bath is not like the place to see and be seen like it once was. It's where like the old and infirm go. So, you know, it's not really the greatest place to be, but she runs into this guy who rubs her the wrong way right off the bat. When she's staying at an inn on her way to Bath, it's not the greatest inn. The doors don't even have locks to the rooms. So she's in her room, and all of a sudden this man appears, and she's like, get out of my room. And he's like, I would, but I'm running from somebody, and it would be better if you just said that you have not seen me. So he hides in her wardrobe. She's pissed, and she wants to sell him out because she's like, nobody's gonna tell me what to do. She's very much a duke's sister. She's very haughty. And then 2-3 other men bust in her room looking for him, and the way that they treat her, she is more incensed with them than she is with the first guy, Joshua, who was busted into her room. And so she basically tells them to F off and leave. And then he comes out there and kind of makes a pass at her. And she's like, you just left like the room of another woman. Apparently you were trying to compromise her. I don't feel sorry for you. If you don't get out of my room, I will scream. He doesn't think she'll do it, but she does. And so he has to jump out the window. So she's just like, I have had enough. I want to go to sleep. And she lies whenever people come back in her room. She's like, there was a mouse. She finally gets to Bath, and she comes upon Joshua again, and she heard a scream, okay? And when she rounds the bend, because she's out walking alone, she rounds the bend, she sees Joshua and a maid, and she's like, this freaking prick is compromising another lady against her will? I think not. And she goes up to him, and she punches him straight in the nose. It's great. And Josh is just like, you again, like what the hell? And he did not believe that she was a duke's daughter. It was like, she's just playing a part. I don't believe that this is a duke's sister or whatever. And then whenever they finally go around to, apparently they like roam around the pump room. That's like the place to see and be seen. Joshua does discover that Freya is in fact a duke's daughter and the sister of a current duke. And he's actually the Marquis of Halmere, and when she openly accuses him of trying to compromise a girl, he turns the tables around on her, and she's like, ah, check. So Joshua thinks she's the only interesting person that he could possibly have fun with in Bath, and really enjoys baiting her into debates and just little manipulations to get her lose hold of her temper and go off on him in front of everybody. And then he extricates himself with grace, making himself look really good. And Freya actually really, she says she doesn't like this, but she really does enjoy that he is challenging her this way. And then they decide to do a fake engagement, which I really enjoy. So that is all I'm going to say about the plot of that one. I really enjoyed Freya's character. I really enjoyed what Joshua brought out in her and she and him, because he just feels a little bit like a flighty character. And I just like the way that Freya, this very like untamed woman, brings out the best in him. So I really enjoyed that one. I also gave that one 4.5 stars. Then I read Slightly Tempted, which is the younger Bedouin sister Morgan and Gervais. He is a disgraced Earl of Rothstorn. When he was younger, there was some scandal attached to Morgan's oldest brother, Wulfric. Apparently, Gervais has a vendetta against Wulfric because he had something to do with the reason why Gervais was unable to come home and why his father never forgave him before his death. So he is half French, and this is during the time of the Napoleonic War. They're in Brussels, I believe, and Morgan is with another family who said that they would look after her because the war is kind of like almost over, and Wulfric agreed as long as she had the chaperone, and she's thinking that she might be marrying the son of her chaperones because he's paid her a lot of attention. He said very flattering things to her. And there's this ball, and Gervais spots Morgan, finds out that she's a Bedouin, and it's like, what if I can have my revenge on Wulfric by, tempting his sister into a dalliance, or at least kind of getting her reputation ruined. She's very, very beautiful. She does not have the Bedouin nose like Freya does. And when he's actually dancing with her, he finds that she's an intelligent woman that is very interesting, and he sort of feels bad for involving her in his plot against Wulfric. Then all the plans that he really had, because he set up this like outdoor midnight picnic, which was really cool. I really loved that, but it was all in an attempt to create moments where he could get Morgan alone, start some rumors like, oh, Morgan's paying a lot of attention to this guy, like, wonder what's going on. They've been seen alone, they've waltzed. He does like the German version of the waltz, which is a little bit more scandalous. And then Napoleon rallies troops and it becomes unsafe. Morgan is unwilling to leave because her younger brother, Elaine, has appeared. He is more of a diplomat than a soldier, and he's running messages through. And she doesn't want to leave because she knows that he has to deliver a message to the front lines. And so she insists to stay. So her chaperones stay as well. And she ends up by actually helping this other woman who's helping wounded soldiers. So I really like it because Morgan was your typical debutante. She was young. She's very popular. She thinks that she's going to marry this dude. And then she hears him talking about his regiment, and it's just kind of like, he's really full of himself. My brothers would never brag and say one branch of the army is better than the other. Like, they just feel like boys to me. Like, this is war. And then she goes and she becomes a, makeshift nurse to all these wounded soldiers. She's being exposed to horrors of war, and it changes her. And Gervais discovers that she's still there, and he's actually very worried for her. And then her brother goes missing, Elaine, who's supposed to be delivering the message. The message is discovered in the woods, and she is devastated because she's like, where is my brother? What has happened to him? He can't be dead. Gervais agrees to help her try to find him. And so that's all I'm going to say. And I really like it. Like, I love revenge plots that turn into love. It's like, I want to have revenge on one of your family members, but I can't because now I love you. So I really enjoyed that one as well, and I gave it 4.5 stars. So yeah, we had some good Bedouins right in the middle of each other. I needed to break it up a little bit because I was reading lots of historicals in a row, so I picked up Sink or Swim by Maz Maddox, and that's the second book in the Relic series, and these are dinosaur shifters. It's so great. These books make me laugh. I think Maz Maddox has a wonderful writing style. It's very fun and flirty and bantery, and this is a Grump and Sunshine pairing kind of, and I just really love the Grump character. So our band of dinosaurs, who are based in Texas and who are always kind of searching for dinosaur bones or whatever to be sold on the black market, they get wind that there is this man and they need to check it out. And Baja ends up by going, and he needs to team up with this guy named Jackson. Jackson's not part of their team, and Baja is very like insular. Like, he only trusts his family. He doesn't trust outsiders, and he's such a grumposaurus. When he's paired with Jackson, he's not happy because he is just this kind of like twangy, happy-go-lucky guy, and also finds out that Jackson has dealt in trading fossils, and he doesn't like that at all. He's like, he has no honor, and I don't want to be working with him. But of course, he's overruled and he has to do it anyway. So the plan is that Jackson was in league with this guy before, the bad guy, and he's gonna get him onto this cruise ship. And this cruise ship is where all of the black market dealings are gonna be happening. So they get on the cruise ship and they have to pretend to be engaged. And Baja is like, what? I'm not gonna be engaged to you. I would never be able to pretend to be affectionate with you. And I love that. Forced proximity, there's only one bed, and there's a really funny situation. Since Baja doesn't trust Jackson, he meets like this other older couple who are really into collecting antiques and vases and all that jazz. They tell him about this secret auction that's going to go down. Or no, they don't tell him, another guy does. This like superstar, movie star or whatever, who's like obsessed with dinosaur bones, tells him there's going to be a secret auction, you should come. And I can't believe Jackson didn't tell you about that. Like, oh my gosh. Baja thinks Jackson's intentionally hiding shady shit from him, and he's going to backstab, double cross him. And when they get there, it's not what he thinks it is, and it's awesome. I had so many great laughs, and I love Jackson and Baja together. I think that they're a beautiful couple. I gave this 5 freaking stars, and I was gonna include the first book, Smash and Grab, on the podcast, but after I read this one, I can't resist a Grump Sunshine. It's just, I love it. I love it so much, so I'm going to do that one on the podcast instead. Next, I read Bound by Tiffany Roberts, and this is the 3rd book in the Spider's Mate trilogy. It wraps up Catan and Ivy's love story, and right where we left off at the end, it's going to be spoilers if you haven't read the first 2. Catan is in the clutches of the queen, and one of the humans has just been killed, and now the queen knows about the humans and wants to kill them. So Catan has to escape, and he has some help, and he does escape, and he goes back to Ivy, and they know that they can't stay where they are because everyone's going to be looking for them. So they have to wander out into the jungle, into the wilderness by themselves and find a safe place. We do meet like this another faction of aliens who were kind of enemies to the spiders. And we find out that their way of life is actually pretty preferable to the way that the queen has been ruling all of her subjects. So that was one of my favorite parts of the book, was getting to this new kind of city and meeting these new characters, because it was just really nice and really cool. And I did like this book. I didn't think that, I thought it could have been shorter. There's some, like the exploring the woods, trying to get from point A to point B. A lot of that middle stuff could have been cut out. I didn't really enjoy it, and I skimmed a lot of it. The climactic scene might have been able to be added onto the second one and make the second one a longer book. And I would have been very satisfied with it as a duet. Did it need a trilogy? I don't personally think so. Story-wise, length-wise, you might be saying like, oh, that's fitting the length of the 3rd book into the 2nd book is too much, but I don't think that the 3rd book needed to be that long. Overall, I really liked how it ended up. We have potential for growth in the series. She did say in her author's note that she does plan on giving the humans their HEA, because there was some teasing about future spider-human pairings, and I'm very into it, so I will be reading those when they're published. Next, I picked up Dipped in Holly by Dana Isley. I don't know how to say her last name. I feel so bad. But I just saw a lot of people reading this, and I was still kind of like in the Christmassy mood. Well, this was like right before Christmas, actually, and I picked it up, and it is a short erotic novella. And I think Jen told me that the story between Holly and Nick, our main characters who meet in a bar, and I'll say more about that in a minute. I think she said that the author does plan to add on to their romance and their relationship and their story, and it's going to be on different holidays. A new installment will come out. So like when Valentine's Day comes around, they will have a Valentine's Day themed story to add on to their romance, because it is very much the beginning of their romance. Our heroine Holly, she is dressed as like slutty Mrs. Claus, and she goes to a bar, and her boyfriend, she finds out, has been cheating on her, and he basically breaks up with her in front of everybody. So she goes into the bathroom to cry, and she is a plus size heroine, and there's a knock on the door. She just wants to be left alone. She just wants her moment. When she opens the door, she sees a very Santa Claus-like figure, but buff and beautiful and hot, and his name's Nick. It's very appropriate because he's kind of a Santa Claus figure, and I really like it. And he had witnessed it. And he told her, you know, keep your head up. Don't let him see that he's gotten to you. He's a dick. He's a douche. Like, come to the bar. I'm the owner of this bar. I will give you a drink. And when her ex approaches her to be nasty, Nick steps in and like makes out with her, and then they have like a one night thing. It's very hot. I really love it. And at the end of that one night thing, Nick's like, I don't want this to end. So it's very much the beginning of their relationship. It's very hot, very steamy. There's some very creative use of lights that I would not recommend in real life, but I think that reading them in a story was very fun. So I enjoyed this a lot. It is very erotica. Like I said, it's mostly focused on the kinky sexual relationship that they're starting. So I give this book 4 stars. Then I read Wild by Adrian Wilder. This was a very interesting survivalist romance where August is on a private plane and he's been a model. His boyfriend, Dan, is also a model, and they've had this falling out while they're up in the air. He finds out that Dan's been cheating on him, kind of considering their relationship to be an open relationship. And August is like, but I am in love with you. I bought this ring for you because I thought we were committed, and now I find out that you've been sleeping with other people. You banged the stewardess on this plane. What is happening? August is so upset, and then the plane crashes, okay? So he wakes up and he sees some of the people dead around him. There's bears, there's wolves coming out, and there's this man that appears out of nowhere dressed in animal furs who saves him, brings him to a cabin, and August's leg is like his femur bone sticking out. And this guy, Keegan, he is living in the wilderness of Alaska, not by choice, by necessity, because there's this bad guy in the cartel, and I can't remember which one, if it's Colombian or whatever, but he kind of fell into working for this guy named Salvatore because his father already worked for him, and by product he had to assume the mantle when his father died. So there was something that happened in the past, and now he is on the run from Salvatore, and he can't leave the Alaskan wilderness. But now he has this guy who might die in the thick of winter, and he needs to take care of him. So this is a romance between Keegan and August. It's very like high stakes, very like my heart was pumping and pounding. A very cute wolf pup is rescued named Daisy, and I really loved her. I like could cry thinking about her. It was just really great. So I enjoyed this book a lot. It was very, very sweet between August and Keegan, and also, like I said, high stakes. So it was just a very different book to what I had been reading, and I enjoyed it a lot. I gave it 4.5 stars. Then we go to Slightly Sinful, and this is Elaine and Rachel's book. So like I said, it's kind of spoiler, but you know he wasn't dead. That Elaine didn't actually die like they thought he did. While he was taking a message to the front line, he got shot in the leg, he lost blood, and he ends up by falling off of his horse and hitting his head on this tree trunk, whatever. A root, oh my god, I could not think of that word. Okay, and he hits his head on like the root of a tree. So he's knocked out cold. And Rachel, I love this. I was smiling ear to ear. I was like, this is so different. I really enjoyed how Mary Balog wrote very different characters and very different stories for each of the Bedouins. Rachel, she's an orphan, and her father was a gambler, and so she doesn't really have any money. And her only family left is this uncle who's estranged, and she thinks that he doesn't really care about her at all. She ends up by coming across her old nanny who her father had hired to discover that her nanny is now a prostitute, but she doesn't care because she's like, this is a woman who took care of me, was a mother figure after my mom died, and she decides to stay with her and her other band of prostitutes. And they're in Brussels because being where a bunch of soldiers are is very lucrative. So Rachel's been staying with them, and that's not great for her reputation, but she doesn't care. She really loves these ladies, and they dote on her, and Rachel is like, yeah, my reputation would totally be ruined if anybody knew about this, but they want to make a lot of money so that they can return to London and open a boarding house. So that's their plan, except Rachel had met this guy, this pastor, this parson or whatever, who was so well-meaning, flirted with her, and treated the women like equals, didn't look down on them. But guess what? He was after their money and he stole it from them even after he told Rachel that he would marry her, and it was just like this big to-do. So Rachel feels a lot of responsibility that she was the one to bring this man into their midst and get them robbed of all the hard earned money that they had saved away. So they come up with the plan that they should go onto the battlefield and rob dead bodies because they won't miss it, right? So they all go off on their lonesome. Rachel's a little bit queasy about doing this, and she's like, I'll go check the forest. I'll go check the forest. She runs across this man who is absolutely, completely naked. Somebody has already robbed him, okay? And this is Elaine. And then she discovers that she goes to touch him because she's so sorry about this. Like, she's seeing like death for the first time, and she just puts her hands on him and feels a pulse in his neck. And she's like, he's alive. And nobody's paying attention to her. Like, people are walking. She's like, he's alive. Somebody help me. And then finally she's like, it's my husband. Somebody come help me with my husband. And finally, this well-meaning soldier who has lost one of his eyes is like, I shall assist you, ma'am. This is your husband? And she's like, yes, we need to bring him back to the house. So they bring him back to the body house. And Elaine wakes up and he has amnesia. He doesn't remember who he is. So all throughout the book, it's third point of view. So the narrator's referring to him as Elaine, but he doesn't know his name is Elaine. And he knows a few things, but nothing really concrete about his life. It's like really random things that really doesn't tell him anything about who he is. He has no idea what kind of person he is. And I really love this makeshift family with all of the well-meaning, wonderful prostitutes. The new soldier with one eye who has been relieved of duty because he's defective now. Just horrible. And he agrees to protect them and pose as Elaine's valet because Rachel has a plan. Her uncle has invited her to his estate. He's a baron. And she was willed her mother's jewelry, but her uncle doesn't want to give it to her unless she marries somebody that he chooses. And so she's like, if I pretend that this guy, Elaine, is my husband, then I will be married and I can get the jewels, and then we'll have the funds to go to London and track down this guy who's a crook and has stolen the original money in the first place. So that's the plan. That's the plan. And it's very, very interesting. So I'll leave it at that. I really did like this, except I felt like Rachel pushed Elaine away a little bit too much. And it just kind of drug on a little bit too much for me. Her refusal to admit that she loved him and they could work. So it just kind of like wore on me. So I only give this one 4 stars. Then we finally get to Wulfric's book, Slightly Dangerous. And Christine is actually a widow. His heroine is actually a widow. He gets kind of tricked into this house party. He normally doesn't accept invitations, but all of his siblings are married and having kids, and he kind of feels a little bit lonely. His house is a little bit empty, and he got talked into going to this house party. And when he gets there, he's like, all of these people are so much younger than me. I just don't fit in with this crowd. And then we meet Christine, who acts young. She has a young spirit, but she's actually 28 or 29, and she's a widow. Now, she has a reputation for being a flirt, and Wulfric kind of learns of this. And this is the opposite type of woman that Wulfric sees himself with. He wants somebody dependable and somebody who would be very poised, somebody who could take on the mantle of Duchess. And Christine is almost childlike in her love of fun, but it's just beautiful. She loves children. She's not afraid to get down in the dirt with them. And sometimes she makes a fool of herself, but she's so endearing and everybody really loves that about her. And it could be seen as flirting. And she has like this best friend, Justin, who's always been on her side, because we find out that there's something that went on in Christine's marriage toward the end, that her brother and sister-in-law blame her for her husband's death. And they think that she is flighty and flirty and she's the cause of his death. So I love how Wulfric just is so attracted to Christine despite he's like, why do I find her attractive? Like, she's everything I don't want. I don't like this. So I really enjoy him struggling with that. But again, same problem with Rachel and Elaine. I think I got a little bit tired of the refusal to admit, like Christine's refusal to admit that she is attracted to Wulfric. Or not that she refuses to admit that she's attracted to him, because at one point She says I'm in love with him. And then later she's like, but I'm not in love with him. And like refuses to let him prove that they would work together as a couple, like an actual couple. And she like refuses it, says she can't. And it just like was a little bit grating because I felt like she was a pretty confident character, but sometimes she didn't give herself enough credit. And I wish that we would have some more tender, sweet moments with Wolf. So I did enjoy it. I really enjoyed Wolf's character a lot more than I did Christine's character, but not because I didn't like her. It's just I didn't like that she kept up her walls for so very long. I really did like the plot twist at the end, something that Wolfric discovers. I was like, yes, this moment's so good. It's so badass, but I really did enjoy it, but not my favorite of the series, so I gave it 4 stars. Now I'm going to end December with King and Queen, which is the final book of the Relic series, the dinosaur series. There's only 3 out right now. And this is this is about Royal, and he's like the tech guy, and he's like a triceratop. And he is tasked with going to this dig site. At most dig sites, they want somebody on the ground because that's the biggest potential for another of their kind to be discovered, because that's how they were discovered at dig sites. The more humans would dig, the better chance that a dinosaur shifter who had been slumbering for millennia would awaken. And it's very jarring because you awaken and all of a sudden you're in this new human body for the first time, and it's very confusing. So Royal, who normally doesn't do like field work because he is the tech guy, has to go. When he gets there, first of all, before he gets to the dig site in Canada, he goes to a bar or a club, and he meets this guy. His name's Blaze, and the way that Blaze is described, he's just so lovable and adorable and just so charming. So Blaze is genderqueer, but he says that he leans more towards a feminine male. And he loves beautiful skirts. He has killer eyeshadow and wigs and all that. And so they have this one night stand hookup in the club and don't get each other's names. And then they run into each other again. And the way that they run into each other, it's so humorous and so hilarious. Royal's at the dig site and he's like, it's midnight. Nobody should be here, and there's humans here. It's messing up, you know, I'm supposed to be here just in case one of us pops out from the ground like a zombie. And he gets there, and there's these men, and all of a sudden he's like, oh fuck, because the ground starts moving, and somebody pops up, a dinosaur shifter, okay? And he's in a human form, and he's a little bit scared, and he's like, oh no, I can't like expose myself. Like, who are these men? What do they want? And then the new dinosaur shifter decides to shift into his form, and he's like an apex predator. He's I forgot what type of dinosaur he is, but he's a tyrannosaur, one of them, and he's very aggressive and stuff. And Royal's like, I'm gonna have to shift to protect these dumb humans for being here, aren't I? So he has to shift, and he ends up by charging the new guy. We'll call him Al, because I think he's is he an Allosaurus? I think he's an Allosaurus. I'm not sure. And charges him, and then all of a sudden another dinosaur appears, and he's a gigantosaur. Don't quote me on this. I'm not a dinosaur person, not that I have anything against them. I'm not educated on any paleontology further than what I've learned in school, the basics, and I've forgotten all of it. So he appears, and he kind of gives Royal a nip, and then Blaze is also there. So he's freelancing right now. He's a dinosaur nerd, and this is what I really love about Maz Maddox. Maz Maddox herself is a dinosaur fanatic, and she loves dinosaurs, and she really does include a lot of scientific things in there. And I really love it. Her author's note at the end of this one, just talking about how she wants to represent these dinosaur nerds and a bunch of different kind of people. And like for Blaze being this very flamboyant, feminine guy who's literally at this dig site in a skirt, and he loves this, and he ends up by videoing this. And he's like, I can't believe what I'm seeing, and he's live streaming it. So there's these dinosaur shifters, and he's filming this fight, and he gets closer, and the Allosaurus kind of sees him and Royal now has to protect Blaze. It's basically a clusterfuck. Everyone gets separated. The Allosaurus goes one way. The Gigantosaur decides to go after him instead of Royal and Blaze. So Royal transforms into a human and he's like, we gotta get out of here. And I just love it. I just love it. I love the way that the humans are paired up with the shifters because it's just really funny and I enjoy it. So they are trying to figure out where has Al gone. We have to find Al, and we also have to find out who is this group that they have shifters in their midst. And apparently there has been kind of like a string of like desecrations towards fossils at these different dig sites and museums. So they're kind of tracking him that way, the Gigantosaur. And I just really love it because it's very adventurous. All these books are very, very adventurous. There's always like a bad guy and stuff. And it's hilarious. I love Mazmatic's humor in this book and it's just really beautiful. And I teared up a couple of times with Blaze and he's just adorable. And there's one of my favorite things about it is toward the end and it has to do with Blaze and Al. And it's like, it was just so amazing and I loved it. I loved it so much. I will put this spoiler in because I just want to talk about it a little bit. So Blaze gets in a position where they finally find Al, where the Gigantosaur is keeping him in a basement of a drag show. And we think that Al is going to eat Blaze, and when Royal finally gets down there, he sees Blaze just petting a sleeping Al, a dinosaur. And he's just like, I just yelled at him and he just laid down and I gave him pats and now he likes me. And so he feels very protective over Al and he's like, this is like basically my son, my adopted son. So Blaze becomes like a father figure for Al and he renames him Henry. It's just really adorable that this apex predator, like a T-Rex but not because he's an Allosaurus or whatever his name is, he looks to Blaze when he finally shifts into a human and they're trying to teach him how to be human and stuff. He always looks to Blaze like, should I go with this person or is he trustworthy? And Blaze is like, yeah, you can go. And I just love that and I want to see more of them. I want to see more of Blaze being a daddy to a dinosaur shifter. He's an adult, obviously. He's not like a child shifter, but it's just adorable and I really like it. So anyway, I really love Mazmatic's author note in the back too, so make sure that you read those. I just love it. I love that she's so passionate about dinosaurs and I'm really enjoying these dinosaur shifters. I want this series to go on for a long time. So that's it. That's what I'm wrapping up December with. I'm very glad that I can end it on a high note with King and Queen. It was really great. Really loved it. And yeah, I can't believe 2021 is over. I'm gonna have to do my end of the year wrap up, which is going to be interesting. I think that maybe audiobooks have edged out any other type of format that I've read this year. I relied a lot on audiobooks and they were a lifesaver. So it'll be interesting to see all that. I'm planning to do a January TBR, obviously books that I'm excited about in 2022 and just a lot of stuff. Lots of stuff happening in January actually. It's gonna be a busy month, which I'm glad that at least it'll be in the beginning of my semester, so hopefully not quite as busy, but I say that and then I need to knock on wood because I think it's gonna be back to the grind pretty much right off the bat. So we'll see how that works out. Hopefully I won't be too MIA during the semester, but I can't promise that. I hope that everyone had a wonderful Christmas holiday if they celebrated, and I hope that everyone has a wonderful, safe, happy new year. I can't wait to see what 2022 brings. I will see you guys in the next year. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe to get notified on any future videos that I do. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, life's better with little HEA. Bye guys!